how do you go about to rebut what is being said about Muslims, about Islam? Films are used for promotions, for propagandas, for product advertisements. Every motion picture or film can be said to be propaganda because it presents a background, environment, characters who behave in certain ways that influence the thought, feel, and opinions of audience. However, the term is usually restricted to film made deliberately to influence opinion or to argue a point. The West has taken this up very quickly. Probably the most successful propaganda films are two British documentaries, Harry Watt's Target for Tonight, produced in 1941, and Humphrey Jennings' Fires Were Started, 1943, produced during the World War II to encourage British youth to enlist in the armed forces and join the war. However, the most consistent and most powerful propaganda use of cinema for propaganda was seen in the Soviet Union before the 1917 revolution. After World War II, up to before September 11, up to the September 11 incident, Hollywood movies portrayed swastika as the backgrounds of evil and cruelty. The walls of ghettos, the walls of places where CD characters meet are painted with ghettos. But after the September 11 incident, we see the word Allah. We see Arabic scribbles without meanings to show that we are cruel. The Muslims are cruel. Arabs are cruel. Followers of Islam are cruel. But what do we do? Or how do we do to oppose this? The West, not just Hollywood, but France, Spain, Germany, and other European filmmakers are producing biblical movies with Christian values as early as the early 20th century. Film, Passion Play, and Vitagraph's The Life of Moses were produced and distributed way back in 1907 and 1909, respectively. This was followed by 100 other movies, and some are even acclaimed as epics. Films such as Ben-Hur, produced in 1957, The Robe, 1953, King of Kings, 1961, The Ten Commandments, 1956. Of note, The Ten Commandments has been produced 5 times. In 1923, the first one. 56 was the most famous one. Then 2006 as a musical. In the same year, it was produced as TV series. And lately in 2007. I don't know, it has not reached our shore, the one produced in 2007. And they have gone far forward. Next year, 2013, Steven Spielberg's movie, Gods and Kings, will be in cinemas. And most Steven Spielberg's movie are box office. So, again, where are the films? Or where is the film that portray us, the Muslims, Islam? Innocent of Muslim is not the first and will not be the last film that belittle and insult Islam. The question is, what do we do? Muslim filmmakers, Muslim countries are mostly concentrated in Asia and Africa. It's up to filmmakers in these countries, apparently, to make films that truly depict Islam and Islamic teachings. Islamic movies does not necessarily mean Quranic stories or stories based on the Al-Quran. The movies can be of any genre, as long as it portrays Islamic values. But apart from Iran, that has been able to make some inroad into international market, most filmmakers in other Muslim countries in Asia make films for local consumption or local market. Indonesia, the country with the largest Muslim population and sizable film industry, and the ability to market its films across its borders to Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, produces only 10% of its 10 to 15% of its total production films on Malaysia, on Islam. Most filmmakers in Asia, and definitely in Muslim countries, are independent producers. They are profit-driven. This is one of the problems. Making films for big screen, the cinemas, are speculative investments. The returns are unsure. How much money are we going to get back? Or are we going to lose all the money? So it is better to make movies that are sure to be in the box office. Movies that has values like the one produced by Hollywood, like the one produced by Bollywood, with songs, with half-naked bodies and all those things. Non-speculative investments, making films contracted or assigned by TV stations, are also limited because the stations that buy the products are governed by income from advertisers, and advertisers dictates what they want to buy. As most local film producers are for local consumption, the size of the market is very, very small. This is another restraint that we are having. As movie making is seen as an entertainment venture with misguided promise of fame and profit, more production houses are formed and more films are being produced. This creates an influx of local movies and the market becomes saturated. One very good example, last year, the best film in Malaysia collected about 20 million ringgit. This year, the last two films that were in the cinemas collected about 20 to 40,000 ringgit. The Malaysian experience after the studio productions era of Shaw Brothers and KT Craze in Singapore closed down in the 1950s and 60s, the Malaysian film industry experienced a dark age. Locally produced movies by independent producers were not successful at the box office. RTM, Radio Television Malaysia, a government TV station, and TV3, a private TV station that existed then, were producing and broadcasting in-house productions. So the independent producers have nowhere to go. As an effort to help the independent producers, the government introduced a scheme known as Drama Swasta and assigned RTM to buy or to purchase dramas from independent producers based on proposals forwarded by them. The system evolves. Today, all stations in Malaysia, all TV stations in Malaysia, apart from producing their own, they are buying programs from local producers based on pitching system. That means the producers have got to pitch what they want to do, how much they want to do, and all those things. And we have many, many studios or TV stations now, not only just RTM and TV3 as before. Media Primas have got 4 stations, TV3, 8TV, NTV7, TV9, and Astros have got multiple satellite channels. Then the government again established National Film Development Corporation, or FINAS, in 1981 to help the Malaysian film industry with the responsibility to promote, protect, facilitate, and develop the film industry of Malaysia. Alhamdulillah, up to today, FINAS has been able to uplift the standard of, at least the standard of life of Malaysian producers, if not the standard of Malaysian movies. With the formation of FINAS and the implementation of its programs and functions, Malaysian film industry receives a fresh breath. Locally produced movies are being screened regularly in local cinemas now under the scheme that is called Wajib Tayang, or how do I say it in English? Wajib Tayang. Forced screening, scheduled screening. But as I said earlier, market dictates. So some movies get good box office ratings, some bombs in the box office. As a multiracial and multireligious country, Malaysia cannot impose the value of Islam on its entire citizenship. No way. So, Film Censorship Board of Malaysia ensures that films shown in the cinemas and TV do not have negative values or values that are deemed to be dangerous or detrimental to national security or racial harmony, or have issues that are sensitive to local culture and various religions practiced by the population, including Islam, or more so Islam, because Islam is the official religion of this country. Extreme violence, horror, and sex scenes are forbidden and censored. To ensure the continued assimilation of Islam values in films telecast on TV, the government established an Islamic TV station known as TV Al-Hijrah on the 7th of February 2010. The station broadcasts 18 hours a day, telecasting Sharia compliance programs. FDM, Film Directors of Association of Malaysia, of which I am the Vice President, and Mr. Jamil behind there is one of our committee members, played a role in formulating the Sharia compliance guidelines. We met the authorities on Islam several times to formulate, to give guidelines, to make sure that one is, it doesn't intrude in the lives of others, doesn't go against the law. At the same time, to make sure it is showing halal things, teaching our audience to be right, teaching our audience to behave in a proper manner, in the Islamic manner, to comply with the Sharia. Finally, I have to sadly to say the challenge by Muslim filmmakers in Asia is very, very huge. The opportunity is very limited because the market is being controlled by the non-Muslim. So government assistance is required. In Malaysia, government assistance comes through TV Al-Hijrah and FINAS. It's assisted for indie filmmakers to make Islamic films or films with Islamic values. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for the enlightening. And now Mr. Saeed will speak about the Iranian experience in movies and in films, before the revolution and after the revolution. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Farida and Dr. Riza Lavati and Dr. Ali Jamali and each of you, of course, and it's really my honor to be here today. It's a very good opportunity to share with you my understandings from Islamic cinema and also historical evolution of Iran cinema before and after the revolution. Iran cinema has had lots of ups and downs so far. In 1900, a cinematograph was purchased during Muzaffar Shah's trip to France. During that time, cinema was not public in Iran. 100 years ago, the first movie theater was opened in Tehran. In Reza Shah's period, the first Iranian sound film, The Lorgir, was made in India. However, Iran cinema faced a big failure around 40s due to importing foreign movies. 50 years ago, Farsi film formed with dancing, hero and anti-hero, happy ending characteristics, and singing. Movies of this era were generally action, romantic, and social. The movies were so corny that of the critics said, whoever the first movie maker is has not made a movie yet. In the last decades of Shah's regime, due to decreasing popularity of the amusing elements of movies, such as violence and sex during the young generations, especially educated ones, Farsi films were totally destroyed. In that period, a new thought was forming in Iran cinema. They believed in destroying Farsi films in order to achieve social conscience and transformation. When Islamic revolution occurred, two groups of places were attacked by people. First one was banks, because they were the symbols of regime's economy. And second one was cinemas, movie theaters, because they were symbols of Western imported cultures. And when Imam Khomeini came to Iran in his first speech, he mentioned that we are not against cinema, we are against prostitution. And with this sentence, the Iran cinema after the revolution was formed. A number of directors, actors, and scriptwriters left Iran, and the remaining group organized the intellectual cinema movement, such as Kiarostami, Beyzai, Ali Hatami, and Mehrjui. In this period, young directors such as Hatami Kia, Jafar Panahi, and Majid Majidi entered the filmmaking field. By studying and hard working, they were able to play an important role in Iran cinema. However, another movement in cinema was formed along with the first group. The latter included filmmakers who did not have intellectual perspective in their works, and they just made movies to hit box offices. During this time, because of the after-revolution conditions, elements like violence and sex were compulsorily eliminated. Policymakers believed that the cinema, Iran cinema after the revolution must be different from the before revolution, and they should not copy American cinema. They believed that we need pure and academic cinema, which dealt with ethics and human values. It should be free from attractions of Farsi and Western cinema. This was called spiritual cinema. It was not only domestic authorities, but also famous international festivals like Venice and Cannes festivals helped Iranian cinema to become outstanding cinema by awarding prizes. Among them, Avni Martyr, who was a filmmaker, had a different point of view. He argued that we have been taken in by cinema prizes. We have made unpopular movies because we don't want to copy Hollywood cinema. He believed that our cinema has not become global and it's just festival winner. When our cinema is universal and global, that for example in India, people line up in their own city to see, for example, Iranian movies. According to Avni, we send our movies to international festivals to win prizes and then bring them to Iran and say, okay, this film has won many prizes, so it's worth to see. We cannot give a new definition to cinema. Cinema is cinema. So Islamic movies should be amusing in the first place with a realistic and simple story to make the audience believe and identify with it. So he believed that we should make movies that are first cinematic. If we define Islam in Islamic cinema according to human's nature, it would be much better. We should not scare audience. One of the best examples is Majid Majidi's movies. I know you know some of his works. The simplicity of his movies reveals childish and pure theme of his works. By employing unknown actors, he makes the movie more realistic, and the audience knows if this film is valuable. It's not because of the professional actors. So firstly, cinema must be cinema. It must have a story and a hero. We should not forget that Islam without cinema would lead to cinema without Islam. And idealistic cinema must deal with our society's issue, and it must have approving stories. A good movie does have a director, a script, and drama. Cinema must have the same qualities. Cinema is not just a message or a speech. We need to have a deeper outlook. Some groups say that, okay, before the revolution, our camera were capturing, for example, nightclubs, and after the revolution, to produce Islamic movie, we should show prayers or Islamic rituals. And because you can have a successful cinema as long as you are able to master the cinema's tools, otherwise you will be able the tools of the camera. So you should know how you make the movie at the first place, and then you can give the definition of cinema to Islamic to your movie. So what is Islamic cinema? I believe that maybe in a movie none of the customary famous Islamic symbols can be found, but it is still Islamic movie. Islamic cinema is not formal religious criteria. Structurally being religious in cinema, it doesn't mean visually revealing the reality of religion. Because cinema is a visual art, similar to Islamic architecture, visually manifests the reality of Islam. In a mosque, we are suddenly in the presence of Allah. In a mosque, the atmosphere, location, and volume themselves present the reality of Islam and spirituality of the location. Indeed, mosque is the embodiment of Tawhid, visually and practically. Applying verses from Quran and religious narratives are just decorative and emphasizing it, not structural. However, we should determine Islam in Islamic cinema in order to define Islamic cinema. What is said, the conception of Islam is obeying the God. That means when something or someone is in its true position, the position that God has created human being to achieve is his humanity, and his humanity is just his Islam. Human being is connected with the God, other humans, nature, and universe through his natural true position. So human's Islam is his humanity. Pure and true Islam is the Islam that has humanity and comes from the fitrah. In defining Islamic cinema, one should not suffice to the surface of Islam. Hence, a movie in which people say prayers, go on Hajj, fast, donating money, and do this kind of Islamic ritual is not necessarily an Islamic movie. Islamic movie should be able to attract audiences' attention to the fitrah, origin and place of return. And in one word, it should awaken his humanity. Something that an Islamic filmmaker should study Islamic theology, philosophy, or maybe usul kafi. And a number of people suggested working on Islamic conceptions instead of character and a story. However, these concepts had been fulfilled in the best way in our society. We have a wide variety of stories. Let's notice to these stories, see the real Islam in our community and film it. We can make a romance movie, but Islamic, or political movie, which is Islamic. I can mention some good examples, like The Glass Agency, Under the Moonlight, Gold and Copper, So Close, So Far, Children of the Heaven, and The Color of the Paradise. When you see, for example, The Glass Agency, you cannot say this film is romantic or detective or maybe political or social. The whole film is the hero's dialogue with his wife. It's one of the best examples of Islamic cinema, Islamic movies, which can also cover political, social, dramatic, and also other aspects of cinema. Or Gold and Copper is a romance and dramatic movie that contains humor. This film is so close to daily life, and it doesn't have metaphysical miracles, and the audience can identify themselves with it easily. And also this one is a romantic movie, which is actually a successful Islamic film. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I prepared some questions for the panel, but they answer all my questions in their presentation. I would like if anybody wants to, yeah, okay? Please come.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Dr. Ala Husni from IRK, IIUN. Actually, I'm very happy to have